doing? So, one of the main things I want to talk about today is letting go. Letting go. And when I use the term letting go, it's not used in the term as, the cliche, letting go is not, for the other party, it's for you, or letting go ain't for this, letting go ain't for that. Letting go is realization. Letting go is understanding. Letting go is more so just knowing yourself, knowing what you can tolerate and knowing what you won't tolerate. When it goes through a certain level and you get to a certain point in life to where you can't be so much understanding, that's when it's time to let go. Because one thing I realized just as I go through my journey and just throughout my 33 years of this journey is the power of choice. Regardless of scenario, regardless of the situation, regardless of what may or may not be in front of you, or whatever the situation that applies to you, regardless of what may happen, depending on your answer, it's all a choice. You have a choice to make whatever decisions that you choose to make. And if you make certain decisions, then that's the decision that you made, not for per se the greater good of whatever individuals involved, but the greater good of yourself. I'm learning, and I have learned that a lot of decisions, let's say I have made, and a lot of decisions other people have made, they wanted to make that decision. They wanted to make the decision because at that moment, that decision was more important and it was more self-satisfying to them than it was the other person or whatever the situation, that calls for it. And it's all about just self-accountability and just holding, yourself accountable and holding other people accountable for that and having an understanding and make sure people have that understanding that whatever decision that you made, you don't need to explain it. You don't need to try to justify it. You made a decision because at that moment, that's the decision that you sense was more beneficial for you than whatever party or whatever situation was involved. You seen more of an asset making the decision that you made than the asset of that person's feelings. You made a decision for your greater good, utilizing the other person's feelings, the other person's intentions as the expense. And once you realize that, and once I have realized that, it's easier for me to let scenarios go and not take situations. You, I say it like this: you take it for what it is. You take the scenarios, you take the situation exactly for what it is. There's no gray. It's black and white. These was the options that was placed in front of me. I use myself for example. If somebody placed two particular options in front of me and I made the choice to go with whatever decision that I chose to make, that's the decision that I chose to make, regardless of if it's going to hurt whoever is involved, whether it's going to put anybody else in a situation to where they will be not as where I'm looking for, not as privileged. Let's say not as privileged in that situation in terms of their feelings, their objectives. That's the decision that was made. The decisions that I would have chose at that time. That decision was more important than your feelings. That decision was more important than whatever you had going on. And that's once you get that understanding, and once I have got that understanding, like I said, it's easy for me to let go of situations. It's easy for me to let people go. It's easy for me to let jobs go. It's easier for me to let anything just go. You know, regardless if it's good, regardless if it's bad, that's all subjective. And that's another thing in life. I don't think a lot of people grasp the understanding on, in which I'm starting to really, really grasp the understanding on. Everything is literally subjective. What is good? What is bad? How is it good? How is it bad? That's the type of questions that I I find myself asking myself that because it's at a point to where you can't be understanding all the time. For the longest part of my life, I was so understanding, and I'm tired of being understanding, honestly. Just to be completely frank, I don't want to be understanding. I'm not going to be understanding. It's black and white. You made a choice. That was your choice. You don't need to explain it. You don't need to try to justify it. You don't need to uh, try to put a smoking mirror in front of it to try to persuade somebody else why that was the best decision for both parties. No, it was the best decision for you. Because I look at it like this: the decision that you made, in some sense, somehow you got some enjoyment out of it, whether it was psychologically, whether it was physically, some way, somehow, you got a laughter out of it. You got some type of, something within you made your gears grind. You enjoyed it. So that's why a lot of times I don't even be asking for apologies, and I don't even give apologies. Like, that's a decision that was made because you wanted to make it. You when that decision was made, it was validated that your personal feelings and your personal objective, whatever that was more important than anything else that would have fell behind it, basically. Any other scenario, any other situation that fell behind it. Because it's a domino effect. Every action has a reaction. I didn't have people, and I have done this, but I'm just going to speak into my own personal experience. I didn't have people walk out my door one way, come back a totally different way, knowing they just had finished making a decision that was going to bring some type of pain and agony towards me. But they did it because that's what they wanted to do. And once I understand that's what they wanted to do, then that's when it gets to a point where I realize that I got to do what I have to do what's best for me. So you got to let shit go. I let people go. They had people in my life that I wanted to be in my life forever. I mean, forever. And now I'm at a point like, no, I don't. Because one great thing I always said to some people, and especially people that I love, I never do to you what you have done to me. Ever. I would have never done that to you. And most people, it goes in one ear and out the other. They don't really get it. Because at some point, I didn't get it. But once you get it, you can't put it back. Once you understand, you can't ununderstand. That's the power of letting things go. And I'm learning. I have learned. But this is another chapter in the book. So hopefully this message helped anybody who's, looking at it. Hopefully it gives you some type of clarity. Hopefully it gives you some type of understanding. Hopefully it gives you some type of closure, whether it's in your personal life or even if it's closure, something involving me. Understanding. Letting go for good.